So we're now learning about Simchas Torah. And last week we left off explaining the fact that Simchas Torah is the highest point of this whole time period, starting from Rosh Chodesh Elul up until Simchas Torah. It's climbing a spiritual ladder, which would mean that Simchas Torah is the highest point of our spiritual growth or spiritual ascent. And we explained that the reason for that is because we know what it says in Tanya, that the vessel for godliness is bittul. And bittul, the highest expression of bittul is simcha. More than tshuva, more than love, more than fear, more than Kabbalah sale, because all these other feelings and emotions and ways of serving Hashem, even though, of course, this is what it's all about and they're amazing, but in all of them, there's still some sense of self. And even if it's satisfying myself spiritually, like a person who's hungry, a person who's thirsty, and he's craving for food, craving for a drink, and that's how I crave for godliness, which is amazing. Halavai, we should all be craving for godliness like we crave for food and other physical needs. But nevertheless, when we say I'm craving for it, means this gives me pleasure. There's still a certain sense of me. Simcha, true simcha, can only be if I let go of me completely. If I step out of myself. In fact, there's a famous explanation of Hasidus on the song, Kiva Simcha Seitzeyu. We all know that song. So the words mean Kiva Simcha Seitzeyu, you'll go out with joy. But the Hasidic interpretation is Kiva Simcha Seitzeyu, with Simcha, you go out of yourself. You're able to step out of yourself, go beyond yourself. And we explained last week, that the more a person is focused on self, and the more there's that sense of self-awareness and self-consciousness, this is usually what leads to the opposite of simcha, all sorts of feelings which are not simcha, unhappy about something. And the more a person is able to let go of themselves, that's the person that could really experience simcha. And what I said to you last week was, I use an example of something which is extreme, very extreme. But from the extreme, we can also get an idea of what it is in situations, which is the majority of situations, which is more of a gray area. What's extreme? Yeshus to the extreme is the narcissism. And I was looking around to see what are the sort of symptoms. How does a narcissist act? And I'll give you a few things that I picked up. One of them is that a narcissist is a person that it's always everybody else's fault, not their fault. A narcissist is a person that nobody's good enough to teach them. Nobody's good enough to guide them. They don't have a mashpia because they can't be a mashpia. A narcissist is a person who gets angry very easily, blows his top if something doesn't go his way. A narcissist is a person that always feels entitled, that he's entitled, that he should have this and he should have that. And if you think of it, this is what Yeshus is. Yeshus means that it's all about me inflating and protecting and preserving my ego. All these things, that's why they have to be. That's why this person's jealous of everybody else, because if somebody has more than me, someone's achieved more than me, it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me feel smaller. And this kind of person could never really be truly happy because he's always so concerned about himself and his ego, his yeshus. This is a person that always needs to control the situation, has to control others, because if someone else is in charge, that makes me smaller. This person never never regrets anything did wrong. I think I told you this once, that someone told me when she went out with actually her husband who she married. So during the date, he said to her, so when you feel that you offended somebody, do you say, I'm sorry? So she said, yeah, I have no problem. If I realize I made a mistake, I say, I'm sorry. They said, what about you? Me, I never do anything wrong. But they got married anyway and had a nice marriage. Anyway, because obviously that was a joke, but in reality, a person who's a yesh never does anything wrong. Nobody could understand them. So all these things make a person unhappy. And the less a person is focused on self, that's the happy person. What do you mean not focused on self? So what are you focused on? So a person who doesn't have Hashem in his life can't let go of himself. There is nothing there but myself. How can I let go of myself? What does that mean? When you realize that Hashem is the master of the universe and he's my source of life, so therefore let go of myself doesn't mean destroy yourself, disappear. In fact, on the sheet that I gave you, number 8, look at page 13, the page of Simcha. On the bottom of the page, it says, holiness. Holiness means frivolity. This is considered one of the very negative character traits. In fact, it's one of the extreme negative character traits. People who are like loose and frivolous, always joking, but not in a way of joking because they want simcha, but basically dismissing everything, sense of responsibility, and it leads to being open and wild and loose, letting down your guard, and that's considered very negative in Torah. In fact, the Gemara says there are 3 groups of people that they won't merit to receive the Shekhinah when Mashiach comes. One of them is people who are liars. One of them people who are what's the second one? Tanifa. What is that in English? You know, when you, sorry, that the English word, flatter, those that are the flatter people, which is a falseness and a deception kind of thing, where you're flattering people, but all you're thinking is about what you're going to get from them. And the third category is catholics and people who are scoffers, who are into this being frivolous. So when you look at people that are besimcha, and you look at people that are wild and frivolous, with your eyes, you might not even tell the difference. Everybody's dancing up and down, the place is red, they're drinking, jumping. One could be at the highest height of ruchnius, and one could be in the lowest depth of tomb of impurity. Why? Because being happy is letting go of yourself. But letting go of yourself, which direction? When we let go of ourselves, we become part of something which is infinitely higher than us. Frivolity and wildness and looseness means letting go of myself and becoming lower than a human being. And these are the people, unfortunately, where you read about when they have a celebration, how many people got killed, how many car accidents, how many other crazy things happened, because they threw off a sense of responsibility. It's going lower than yourself. Simcha is going, letting go of myself, but connecting to something higher than myself. And that's what the simcha is all about. And that brings a person to break all barriers. If I don't have that focus on self, I'm able to get along with everybody. I'm able to make certain achlotas, and many people, a life-changing thing in their which brought them life-changing results was simcha. In other words, they were in a very happy place. Either they attended a kappas or they attended a wedding. I remember once I had a student here that her sister became frum and she was not into it. Then she went to her sister's wedding. And after the wedding, she made up her mind. It was in Israel. She joined Machon Alta. Then later she came here. What was it? Just the wedding. What with the wedding? She saw genuine simcha. What does genuine simcha mean? It's not mixed dancing. All the nonsense and the garbage doesn't go on. It's just men rejoicing with the chassan, women rejoicing with the kala, and the simcha lifted her up to such a place that all the barriers came down. Someone here in the community once told me that he was asked the question, so what made you actually do tshuva? So he said, well, I just ran out of excuses. In other words, also the Yitzhar comes up with all sorts of excuses. I can't because of this, and I can't because of that. I remember one girl told me, I can never take on kashrus. I won't be able to have my mother's vegetable soup. Forget it. There's no way I can be without that. But the truth is, once a person's b'simcha, nothing matters anymore. So simcha is really one of the most powerful things. In fact, I would say, even though there's no source for this, but there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov had a student, Reb Zev Kitzer, one of the greatest of his students. It was before Rosh Hashanah. And he said to him, I want you to blow the shofar, but I want you to blow the shofar properly. So I'm going to tell you what to learn, or maybe even shared with him some of the mystical secrets of shofar. And he told him to write everything down. And when he's going to blow the shofar, he should have in mind all these deep mystical secrets when you blow the shofar. He was very excited. Not that he has to blow the shofar. He was excited that the Baal Shem Tov shared with him and gave him all these deep mystical secrets to learn. He did prepared himself, everything. Comes Rosh Hashanah, comes to blowing shofar, pulls the piece of paper out of his pocket, at least he thought he would. It's not in this pocket, it's not in that pocket, it's not in the third pocket. It's gone. He forgot to put the paper into his pocket, and we're in shul now. Baal Shem Tov was waiting for the shofar blowing, and he begins panicking, sweating. There's nothing he can do. And he's so broken that he's sort of disappointed the Baal Shem Tov. Like, even whatever he knew probably couldn't focus. He was just so confused about the fact that he didn't do what he was supposed to. So he had no choice to just blow the shofar. And he was expecting, who knows what's going to happen after the davening. The Baal Shem Tov knew whether he had the right intentions or not the right intentions. He's probably going to say something. But after that, Baal Shem Tov walked over with a broad smile, gave him a big thank you for his shofar blowing. And then he told Baal Shem Tov, but I forgot all the kavanas. Baal Shem Tov told him that in a palace, there are many chambers. Each chamber has its own key. If you have the key to one chamber, you can't open the other chamber. If you have the key to the other chamber, you can't open the third chamber. Each chamber has its own key. But there's one key which is called a master key. With this key, you can open up all the chambers. So he said, I gave you the kavanas. This kavana opens this chamber in heaven. That kavana opens a different chamber in heaven. Third kavana opens a different chamber in heaven. But there's one key which is a master key, and that's a broken heart. You were so broken that you didn't have the kavana to blow the shofar. That was the master key. You got into all the chambers without any difficulty. What I think is that perhaps based on the Rebbe's Sichos, today they changed the master key. It's not a broken heart. Today the master key is simcha. That with simcha, you can open all chambers. You can open all doors. And this was the Rebbe's advice to people in all circumstances. Simcha, simcha, and again, simcha. And again, because this is the highest level of bittul, to let go of self. We know that, people who, chas v'sholom, sometimes they had situations where the doctor told them that the prognosis is very bad and they don't see good results. And one of the things they ever told them was to make a sudus heda, which means a special meal that you thank Hashem for the miracles. But there were no miracles. The person is in critical conditions. But they ever said to thank Hashem for the miracles. And I don't know if you ever saw this video, but I remember the story when I was growing up, where there was a Rav in Toronto, his name was Rabbi Shachat, and his daughter was very sick. And the Rebbe's advice was, this advice to make this, she said, you can't imagine what it was like. Her daughter, this is the mother speaking, her daughter was in critical condition. And in shul, there's a kiddush, jumping on the chairs and singing and dancing. It just didn't go together. But after that Fabrengen, after that kiddush, the situation got even worse. They wrote to the Rebbe immediately. The Rebbe said to go to the doctors and tell them that they made a mistake with the medication. And sure enough, they realized they gave her the wrong medication. They switched to the right medication, and she recovered, and she was She's a woman who lived in the neighborhood for many years with children and grandchildren. So basically, it's simcha breaks all barriers. And simcha is the key to everything. Of course, it's connected to bitachon and everything else, but nevertheless, that's the avodah of simcha. And of course, we have to be careful of simchas Torah because there's sort of a thin line between simcha and the opposite. That chas v'shalom, the simcha shouldn't lead to being wild and doing things which are inappropriate. And so we're remembering that the simcha comes from going out of myself, but being connected to something higher. There's one more thing that I want to add before we go on, and that is, according to Chassidus, one of the deeper inyanim connected to Simchas Torah is that Simchas Torah is like Yom Kippur, but in a mode of simcha. What does that mean? We learned before that Yom Kippur, of course, is the day of tshuva, but what is the essence of Yom Kippur according to Chassidus? Do you remember? What is the essence of what's happening on Yom Kippur? Oh, of course. Of course. Okay. But spiritually, what's happening on Yom Kippur, which causes all those things that you just said?
Get a clean slate.
What's the cause of all these things? It's because on Yom Kippur, the essence, the yechida of the neshama is revealed. Remember, I told you that there's 5 tefillas on Yom Kippur because it corresponds to the 5 levels of neshama. The highest, deepest level of the soul surfaces on Yom Kippur, and that's where the tshuva comes from, and that's where the unconditional love comes from. That's why Hashem's unconditional. Everything you know about Yom Kippur is because the deepest level of the neshama is revealed. And that's also why on Yom Kippur we don't eat, we don't drink, we don't involve ourselves in all the other physical, materialistic things, even those things which you do on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, but not on Yom Kippur. Just davening and learning and just spirituality, because this is a day that is so deep and so high, we're totally removed from spirituality. In fact, there's a famous guard from Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Ditchever, and he said there are 2 days in the year that are very similar, which is Tishrei B'Av and Yom Kippur. Tishrei B'Av we fast 24 hours, Yom Kippur we fast 20 hours. But the difference is, and he said in Yiddish, I'll translate it in English, the difference is, when it comes to Yom Tishrei B'Av, we don't eat, is the kenmanesim. How could one eat on such a day? It's such a tragic day. We're so broken to pieces, we have no desire to touch food. Yom Kippur, there's darfmanesim. Yom Kippur is such a day, who needs to eat? You see the difference? One is below eating. We're so broken. We're so down on the floor. We're so all the way at the bottom of the basement that there's no desire to eat. On Yom Kippur, it's just the opposite. We're so high. Who needs to eat? Who's interested in something so gashmi like food? What's Simchas Torah? Simchas Torah is also that Yechida is revealed, but the difference is on Yom Kippur, Yechida is revealed in a way that I have to remove myself and separate myself from Gashmis. The incredible thing about Simchas Torah is that the Yechida is revealed, and we're eating and drinking and rejoicing in a simcha way, which means it's even a deeper level of the essence of the soul than what's revealed on Yom Kippur. It's so unlimited that it goes together with singing and dancing and rejoicing, not only Yom Kippur, where the only way I can maintain this level of spirituality is by separating myself from all the Gashmis. Here's a way that I can have this Yechida and it be incorporated in the Gashmis with the dancing and singing and with Simcha. Yeah.
How can we go deeper than the deepest part of our soul?
Like you learn Chassidus, you go to the deepest place, and the next time you learn is that it's deeper than deeper, and that is deeper than deeper than deeper and deeper, even deeper than deeper. There are Maimonim that explain what the difference would be, because sometimes when you use the word unlimited, it's like saying the spiritual world is unlimited compared to the physical world. It's not limited in time or in space, but there's a higher world that has even less limitations, and a higher world that has less limitations. So even when you talk about the essence of the soul there are different levels in terms of the depth and the unlimitedness of that essence. Now going back here to page 13, everything that I explained to you is based on the pasuk number 2, the Yosfa Novim Bavayasim, which means the humble ones rejoice. And in other words, on the surface, I would think the people that are humble are the last people to be happy. But if you understand true humility, then the opposite is true. The one that's humble, that's the source of simcha. So, number 5 is mitzvahs hayom simcha v'rikudim. The mitzvah of the day on Simchas Torah is basically singing and dancing. In other words, different mitzvahs have different parts of the body that are used to perform the mitzvah. Shofar, I observe with my ears by listening to the shofar. And a mitzvah like matzah is with my mouth by eating matzah. Tefillin is by putting it on my hand. Lighting Shabbos candles is by making the bracha and lighting it with my hands. What's the mitzvah of the day of Simchas Torah is with our legs, with our feet. It's dancing, the simcha. That's how we perform the mitzvah. In fact, you see an interesting thing when a person is dancing, they lift their feet, which means the head, the brain, the heart, and all the more important organs of the body are lifted by the feet. What does that mean in Avodas Hashem? In Avodas Hashem, it means that we see that on Simchas Torah, we would think that this is the time to sit down and open the Torah and read and learn a whole day, 24 hours, nonstop. Simchas Torah, we're celebrating with the Torah. Instead, what are we doing? Jumping up and down. So in the language of Chassidus, number 4, this is called Simcha L'mayla Mitam V'das. In other words, the Chokhmah in Torah, the wisdom in Torah, is infinite. There's no question about it. And that's how we study Torah, by learning that wisdom and internalizing that wisdom. But the wisdom, as great as it is only a keli. It's sort of a vessel or a capsule that contains in it something greater than the wisdom. And that is Ein Sof, the infinite light of Hashem himself. And the main thing that main objective is connecting and embracing Hashem himself, who is above intellect, who transcends logic and intellect. How do we express the transcending of logic and intellect? Dafka, by dancing and by singing. So that's what I mean by number 6 when it says the head and the feet, meaning to say, in this case, it's the feet that lift the head. Normally, the head leads the whole body, and the head leads every organ in the body where they have to go. But in this case, the feet are lifting the head, and that's the avodah of Simchas Torah. This is also connected to the way we dance. The dancing on Simchas Torah is called hakafos. We'll talk about that a little bit later, just from a halacha point of view. What are you supposed to do? What's supposed to happen? But here we have this on page 7. Hakafos is dancing. We dance in a circle. Basically, in the middle of the shul, there's a bima, there's a table, and this table is where we read the Torah from. And a kavos means to dance in a circle around that, and we dance in 7 circles. What is this business with circles? We have a lot of circles in Yiddishkeit. We dance in the circle when we do hakafos. At a wedding, a chassan and kala, the kala and a family circle the chassan also 7 times, and other things which we'll soon talk about. The meaning of a circle is, in Kabbalah, the word, we learned this just when we spoke about Sukkah, that there's 2 kinds of lights of Hashem. One which is called Makif, a light which is infinite and all-encompassing, and the other one is called Pnimi, an internal light, and that's a finite light. There's a light which is finite and light which is infinite. The difference is the infinite light encompasses all the worlds equally, like a circle which circles things. The point in the middle is equal distance from every part of the circle. There's no difference. And the finite light is a light of Hashem that is sort of delivered to each world according to its capacity, and in the world itself to each level according to its capacity. Daimim, Tzamea, Chaim, Medaber, Malachim, Neshamas, everybody according to their level. So it's full of differences and it's full of different parts, finite, and the other one is infinite. So in Kabbalah, the finite light is called Igul, meaning a circle. The infinite light. The finite light is called Kav, which means a straight line. When you have a straight line, there's higher and lower because the top is the beginning, and every inch or every fraction of an inch closer to the top is higher than the next. And the lowest part of the line is the furthest from the beginning. So there's a higher and lower. In a circle, there's no angle in the circle that one is higher than the other, all the same, because it's infinite. So a circle is representing Makif, this infinite light, and that's what we're drawing down when we dance in a circle in Simchas Torah. So again, a circle, in a sense, is the same idea as L'mayla Metamadah, something that transcends logic and intellect, because it comes from a place in the soul that's also infinite, unconditional love for Hashem. So on page 7, I wrote down number 4, the word minig. Why did I write down minig? We know there are certain things that are midoraisa, it's in the Chumash. There's certain things that are midrabanan, which means the rabbis instituted, like Hanukkah and Purim, washing our hands, and many other halachas that are all midrabanan. Then there's certain things which are minig. Minig means it's not an obligation in the Torah. It's not an obligation from the rabbis. It's just a custom. And some people, because it's just a custom, are sort of dismissive. It's not that important. But actually, Chassidus explains that Dafka customs are connected in a certain way higher than other things in Torah, even though there are absolute obligations. Dancing on Simchas Torah with the Hakafas happens to be one of those things. It's not an obligation with the Raisa. It's not an obligation with the Rabbanan. It's actually a custom that became a custom to dance and sing on Simchas Torah. But on the other hand, the Simcha on this day is greater than the Simcha in any other day. We have very little time to talk about Simchas Torah. Well, all we have is now, tonight, this afternoon, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow afternoon. So I want to use the time a little bit also to share with you, even if there's more things to talk about, some of the things I'm going to talk about in the next class. The next class is going to be halacha. And we have to talk a little bit about certain halachas related to Sukkot. I brought the Lulav and the Esrog and the Hadassim and the Arabas to explain a few things. But I want to just talk a little bit about Simchas Torah by the Rebbe. And of course, I think we can say, in the language of Hasidus, it's called Giluyim. Giluyim means where we see godliness in a more revealed way by the Rebbe's shul and the Rebbe's conduct on Simchas Torah more than any other Yom Tov. And this was not only by the Rebbe, but all the Rebbes of Chabad. Simchas Torah was something out of the ordinary. And I want to start with a story which is brought down by the Frierdiker Rebbe. And that is, it's a long story. It's an amazing story. It's a very inspiring story. But I'm going to have to be brief. I must have been Rabbi Pate. I said the word inspiring. And yeah.
How do you spell Giluyim?
Giluim. Lashon Gili means revealed. but it's I'll give it over briefly, and that is the story that in those days, in times of the Alter Rebbe, people went to the Rebbe by foot. They didn't ride in a wagon. And the reason is because going to the Rebbe is equivalent to going to the Beis HaMikdash. And when you went to the Beis HaMikdash, the mitzvah was to go by foot. So Hasidim went by foot. The first three generations, the Alter Rebbe, the Mittel Rebbe, and Tzemach Tzedek, went by foot. And our family, what? The mitzvahs, that's what it's called, Aliyah the Regel. They're supposed to go by foot. Yeah. In fact, a person who can't walk was, because it's exempt from the mitzvah. Even though he can go in a wagon, he can be in a wheelchair, or any other kind of arrangement, but if he can't walk, he can do the mitzvah, but he's not obligated anymore because he can't walk. He had to walk. So Chassidim used to walk. And our family, my mother would say that her grandfathers, her grandmothers, her mothers, her grandfather basically, her grandfather was one of those people who still walked to the baggage. I'm saying my mother's grandfather, it was known in the family that he was still one of those that walked to the Tzemach Tzedek when they walked. That year that this happened was a very cold winter. Like now we're going into October, is one of those years. It was freezing winter. And a lot of Chassidim, when they came to Lozhner, the Alter Rebbe's city, was sick. Most of them were sick. It says some more severe than others. Cold, pneumonia, and they were high temperature. So there was a certain chassid. He was in charge of keeping order by the Alter Rebbe. So before Simchas Torah, he would go with the Alter Rebbe privately, and he would tell him what he has to look after, what he needs to take care of. So he took the opportunity and said, Rebbe, there are a lot of chassidim that are sick, and some are very sick, some are seriously ill, and some might even be critically ill. It's all because they came here, and they were walking for so long, and we need a bracha. The Rebbe leaned on his head for a few moments, and then he said, it says in reference to Torah, Eish das Lamo. Torah is like fire. Let the fire of Torah burn away the fire of their temperature. They had high temperature, they were sick. So this fire will cancel out that fire. And then the Alter Rebbe said, tell everybody they should come the first night of Hakokas. So, very excited. But one problem, the people were so sick that some of them weren't even able to walk. Number two, it was freezing cold weather, which is not a place for a sick person to go out. But once they heard that the Alter Rebbe said that this will be their cure, so they all had a moon in the Alter Rebbe's word, and they went. There was those that couldn't. So they sent messages, and the young Hasidim came, and they carried them to Shul. But the Friedrich Rebbe goes into this at length, that it was specifically one Chassid. When he got there, he was sick, and he had two son-in-laws with him, or a son and a son-in-law. They were also sick. They were sick, but they were still okay. He was so sick that he was in and out of consciousness. That's how bad he was, the high temperature. Where did they stay when they came? They stayed in the house of their uncle. The uncle was a brilliant Torah scholar, but not a chassid. He loved the Alter Rebbe. He respected the Alter Rebbe, but not a chassid. And he was ballistic. This is the most insane thing to do, to put your life in danger and to be in this cold weather. It's a mitzvah to go to a Rebbe, that's true, but not to make yourself so sick. And he was so upset. In the middle of all the upset, a chassid, Pinchas Reizes, one of the biggest chassidim in the Alter Rebbe, comes in with two younger guys. They came to help bring them to shul. And says, what? You're going to take them to shul? Look at him. His eyes were closed. Face was flushed red. And he was, like I said, in and out of consciousness. And the younger ones who were also sick, his sons and son-in-law, they said, great, they said, excited you came to take us, take our father. And he said, if you take him out with the first wind that blows, he'll be finished. You'll be guilty of murder. He was screaming his head off. And Pinchas Reizes, the chassid, was thinking to himself, maybe the guy's so sick, how could he even think of taking him out? And suddenly he feels, as he's thinking, he feels the younger guys are pulling him. No, come, let's go. We have to go to the Alter Rebbe. And then he said to himself, what's with me? These are young guys. I'm by the Alter Rebbe some 40 years, or how many years it was. And I'm still having I'm thinking maybe, yes, now these are young people, and they have this complete amuna. The Rebbe said to come and they'll be healed, so we're going. Anyway, they went, and he said that night, the place was filled with people. You heard coughing and sneezing and moaning and groaning. Some were laying on the floor, some were leaning on the walls, and how the Alter Rebbe made Kiddush. And he chose speaking to a lady on Yisrael. He gave them his Kiddush, and he told them to go out and distribute Kiddush to everyone, and also to say to the women that any woman that has not been blessed with a child should drink from this Kiddush and should be blessed with a child this year. So, needless to say, I like the expression of the Sikh. It says, someone who made an announcement, and they called him somebody, I forgot his first name, but his nickname was the horse. He was the horse one. They called him horse as if he has no voice. But it was just a different way of saying that he has a voice like a lion. And he made an announcement. He had to scream over all the coughing and all the sneezing and all the moaning and all the groaning. And he said it's a known thing that the Rebbe gives a bracha. Number one, you have to be loyal to the one that gives the bracha. And number two, you have to believe in the bracha. And then you'll see the bracha will be fulfilled. And he started giving out the wine. The next morning, every single person that was there was healed and cured completely. The doctor said for some people, it was a miracle that they were healed. And for some people, it was Tchias HaMesim. Apiteva, there was no way that they were able to survive any longer. So this was a miracle. This uncle became a chassid. Not because of the miracle. He became a chassid when he saw the pure emunah of his nephews and how they were ready to take him out in this freezing cold weather under those conditions, because the Rebbe said that blew his mind, and he became a chassid at age 70 or something. He became a chassid. Anyway, so these are the kind of things that happened by the Rebbe, really miraculous things. And what? The women were blessed with children. All the brachas that the Rebbe promised became true.
Still have that one.
Simchas Torah is definitely a source of bracha, but we have to be with Simcha on the day. No other way. That's the Chas v'Shalom. It can be other ways too. But that's the cater for the bracha on Simchas Torah. So I'll try to tell you a few things in my first of all, I want to give you an idea of how things happened by the Rebbe. And then I'll try to share with you a few exceptional, outstanding, unprecedented Simchas Torah things that happened in those days. But one of them was that, in general, by the dancing, there's 7 hakafas, 7 times that you dance around. Who gets honored with the dancing? Different people in the community. In some places, it's like people buy it, they bid. Whoever gives the most tzedakah for the shul will get pulled up to an aliyah. Before we actually do the hakafas, we read 17 psukim, which is called Atar Resa. And in Chabad, we say it 3 times. The Rebbe would say the first time, all 17 psukim, and everybody would follow after. The other 2, he would say the first one and the last one, and the middle ones, they have what other people would say. Other people were honored. The Rebbe's brother-in-law was honored, the Rabbanim were honored, the Rosh Hashivas were honored, different people in the community. And the same with hakafas. The Rebbe didn't dance every one. The Rebbe only danced the first hakafa, where he danced in the circle, and the 7th hakafa. And he danced with his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law was, the Rebbe married the younger daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and his brother-in-law, his name was Rashag, he married the older daughter of the Frierdiker Rebbe. His name was Chana. So the Rebbe put his hands on his shoulders, put his hands on the Rebbe's shoulders, and they would dance. And this dance lasted for a few minutes. But the Rebbe's face during this dancing was something which, first of all, you're talking about thousands of people in 770. Everybody focused right there in the middle. Of course, short people like me had to get boxes to stand up higher to see something. I don't know if you know this, but short people attract tall people to stand right in front of them.
Yes.
But it always happens. It's like a magnet, yeah. So I had to get up on boxes to see, even though I was on a bench on top of a pyramid, I needed a box on top of the pyramid to see. And the Rebbe's face, I mean, I saw the Rebbe all year long, every Farbrengen, but there was a physical light shining from his face that you never saw all year long. It was mamish a bright light. I used to think only me, but then I saw people writing about it, and everybody saw this just a light shining. And the Rebbe on Simchas Torah would have to do the next class. Okay, we have to do the halacha class. So we'll stop the hakapas for now. We'll stop the dancing for now, and let's get ready to come in. And I'm gonna do something on sukkahs. We're gonna learn a little bit about the 4 minim, and we'll talk a little bit about the differences in davening on sukkahs. What's coming up? We didn't do that yet. So everyone, you want a little break for 2-3 minutes? But somebody please tell the classroom that we're gonna be all here together. I'll prepare my paraphernalia here.